Hello and welcome to OPEX Live 2018, brought to you by the PEX Network. I'm Oliver, Community Manager here at PEX Network, and I'll be your host for today. Our first session today is Learn How the Largest Road Construction Company project in the UK took the fast lane to process improvement, presented by FlowForma. All our sessions are interactive and will include a question and answer section at the end, so do stick around. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, we'd love to hear them. You can type them into the Q&A box that appears on your screen at any time, and our speaker panel will do their best to answer them all before the session ends. Please ensure you have your Flash player enabled and all of your volume buttons are switched on. Should you have any technical issues, such as being unable to see the slides or hear our speakers, please use the Q&A box to let us know, and our team will provide some assistance. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our speakers for today. We have James Morgan, IT Manager for the A14 project, Sarah Holmes, Territory Manager at FlowForma, and Paul Stone, Solutions Architect at FlowForma. Welcome to all of you, and when you're ready, please begin.
Thanks very much, Oliver, for the lovely introductions. So yeah, we're going to have a case study spotlight with James Morgan, the IT Manager of the A14 joint venture. Hi, James. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hi, Sarah.
So James, we may just start with the first question. Can you tell us a little bit about the A14 project and your role there?
Yeah, as I said on the introduction, the A14 is a road scheme for Highways England, probably the biggest in the UK at the moment. Around about 31 kilometres of road, some of it's brand new road and some of it's existing road that's going to be widened. I am the IT manager on that, so responsible for bringing in all the systems, management systems and so forth, enabling the guys to go to work and function and perform their day jobs, basically.
Brilliant, thanks, James. And can I ask, what was the main challenges you were facing before automating your processes?
Yeah, so one of the things that's quite interesting, the construction industry is probably a little bit behind the curve when it comes to adoption of IT. So one of the main challenges we had was predominantly the use of spreadsheets and paper-based processes. So an example of that would be someone going out on site and performing an inspection would be very much paper-based, print the document out, take it out on site, fill it in, complete it, then bring it back, and literally things sitting on top of filing cabinets till Doc Control came along, picked them up and then scanned them. So it's kind of trying to remove that manual process where stuff tends to go missing and you have kind of inaccuracies in data as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine the lack of transparency or misplaced paper forms could potentially be the big issue when it comes to audits on such projects.
Yeah, as you can imagine, obviously, a lot of what we do is governed by rules and regulations around health and safety. So being able to demonstrate things like inspections and permits and so forth has been issued correctly, the data in that permit is correct, and being able to show that. And in some of these cases, we'll need to retain that information for 70-odd plus years. So accuracy of data and being able to put your hands on something straight away without filing or shifting through a file of paperwork is obviously key to what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And James, was it a goal of yours that you would become self-sufficient in creating and maintaining like such process flows?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a management system that has probably around about 400 forms on there in processes that need to be adhered to. Quite keen to remove IT as the kind of bottleneck for automating those forms, which is why we were looking for a solution that meant, within the business, we can pass that ownership back to the business and they can control those processes and start to build them and expand them and adopt them as they need to over time.
Absolutely. And James, once you became familiar with FlowForma BPM, how long did it take you to start delivering new processes?
That's an interesting one because obviously it was brand new to us as a product. One of the main reasons for choosing it was the simplicity of it and the lack of coding, that there was no code that we needed to do. The first process probably took me, I suppose, around about a week and a half to actually build, but that was more getting my head around the logic and how we needed to transpose what's effectively a paper-based document into an electronic automated system. Since then, obviously, we've greatly improved, and just to give you a kind of a bit of an example, the BA did one last week, which was an ecology site inspection. and that probably took around about an hour and a half from sort of start to finish to build it. Obviously, a little bit of finessing to do on it once it's done, but much quicker. You know, compared to standard SharePoint development or something, you can literally do it sat there with the customer at the time. So yeah, very quick.
Brilliant. And I believe you availed of our onboarding program, SureStart. Did you get help with that, and did it help you to get up and running much quicker than doing it by yourself?
Yeah, for sure. There would have been a few rabbit holes we probably ended up going down without that. So yeah, I think we had one of your chaps over for 2 days, 6 of us in a room, kind of looking at processes, going through the training manual. And I think from that, we kind of gleaned some things straight away that I'd been looking at the product for a couple of weeks prior to that they made sense and clicked straight away as part of that kind of 2-day session. So definitely was a benefit to do that for sure.
And can I ask, James, how many resources would have you had attend that session, or how many resources do you have at the moment that would help you build out these processes?
There were 6 of us originally that started on that. We're still sitting at 6 people, I suppose, that are doing it, but what we're doing is kind of finessing what we do at present and then gradually working out through the business. So I'm working on one at the moment, enhancing our materials and plant system, which is a flow process that we've built, and handing that over to a kind of like a champion within that function so that they can start to maintain it and expand it themselves. And obviously we control that by putting that into a UAT environment, and then IT act as the gatekeeper to make sure that everything adheres to standards before it's pushed over to live.
Absolutely, and I think a question that might be useful to many people attending today, did you have your processes mapped before you approached FlowForma? So did you have an idea of what they would look like and how you wanted them to look like?
Yeah, we've got, as I said, we've got the management system, so we've probably got somewhere in the region of about 400 odd processes that exist at present. We had the kind of big hitters and a bit of a bow wave where we knew people wanted to look at things and had ideas of what they wanted to do. So in the main, they are paper-based processes that exist that we then transform and automate. But obviously, one of the other things that's come out of the adoption of FlowForma is that it's given us the opportunity, because we can do things quicker and without the constraints of IT, to enable us to bring on more processes. So the example I gave earlier around the ecology site inspection wasn't on anybody's radar before. It just happened to come out of a corridor conversation with someone. They were complaining about their guys being out on site and the rain and the weather and so forth. And like, well, hang on a minute. We can automate that for you, let them do it on their mobiles, and life becomes a lot easier for all concerned.
Absolutely fantastic, yeah. And James, what kind of processes, I know you mentioned the oncology one there, but what kind of other processes are you using FlowForma for?
We tend to, it's kind of broadening really, to be honest. So I think we were looking at it originally for the big hitters, like I said, the materials requisition process. We run a recruitment process, so being able to use it for that. But we go right from the kind of complex end down to small. We've now just set up a quick form that enables people to register visitors attending site, which then gets forwarded over to the gateman every day so that the gateman know who's attending site. So quite a broad spectrum, to be honest, from very simple, a 5-minute job, up to the more complex ones that need more analysis and structure before they're developed.
For sure. And I suppose a key question is, what was the first process that you looked at for FlowForma as a test case?
It was kind of a blend of two, really. We were looking at the permit to dig and also the recruitment process that we use. We have 4 subcontractors that manage our recruitment. The one we actually went live with and kind of carried forward as part of that SureStart process was the recruitment process, which worked very well.
I imagine that's relevant to a lot of joint venture projects, so very key one to start with. In the time that you've been using FlowForma, how many processes do you now have live or built within the system?
We've got 24, but there's kind of more coming on a fairly continual basis at present, to be honest. Part of the work we're doing at the moment is to, now that I think we've got a team that are more comfortable with FlowForma as a product and understand what we're doing and understanding what analysis we need to do, we're starting to do more in terms of publicising the product within the project. So I'm kind of expecting that we'll see more and more come back in. ultimately, we'd love to automate all of our processes on the management system so that we can improve the consistency of data and the reporting and auditing that we can achieve.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about these flows becoming more consistent. Do you create any of these flows yourself? And did you find FlowForma BPM easy to use?
Yeah, absolutely. I've created probably around about a dozen of them, I would imagine. So
oh, wow.
Yes, we're easy to use. I think one of the things was, as I said earlier on, I mean, I've done a bit of coding in the past, so it's understanding and learning how FlowForma, you need to present data in the way that you need to position yourself with that logic before you put things into FlowForma. Yeah, it's very, very straightforward compared to trying to code. And I think the beauty of it is that you can have that almost immediate engagement with your end user or stroke customer whilst in the middle of doing something. It's not the same as having to develop something within a code base and then demo it to them.
Absolutely. And was no code a requirement for the system that you needed to implement?
Yeah, completely. We looked at quite a number of different systems. One of the things we found, we originally started with an Office 365 environment, so we've got SharePoint Online. At the time, I had a SharePoint resource, so we did start to develop certain processes like materials acquisition and survey requests within SharePoint. But it soon became clear with the number that were hitting us as an IT team that we couldn't deal with that volume. We would need either more resource, and the timescales for that sort of development were too protracted. So that was one of the things we spent probably a good part of 12 months trying to find a low-code solution.
Oh, wow. So it was a full year's kind of prerequisite to find a successful solution, which is quite a long time. Yeah, I can imagine. So having selected FlowForma, how do you find, in terms of time, how long it would take you to create a flow now, depending on obviously the complexity of the process? But typically, what would it take?
I would say probably man hours or working time, you'd probably be looking at about a day for sort of a medium complex one. I think the reason being that we've kind of learnt. We're in the process of producing a bit of a Bible, so we've got a way of doing things within the A14 tied to FlowForma, so that there's consistency around things like department colours and so forth, and reference tables and lists and so forth, so that we maintain that data integrity. So yeah, I mean, I think from start to finish, as long as the paper-based form exists and the customer has a reasonable understanding of the process they want to produce, then I think within a day we can pretty much turn something around now.
Absolutely, James, and I think something we would have come across with you before was the fact that you had the UAT environment that you could kind of nearly test and prototype processes before you actually pushed into a live environment. Would you say you found that of benefit with the amount of processes coming in on nearly a weekly basis to build? Is that something you see as a key piece to the deployment of the processes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when we originally started, we didn't look at the UAT, but it soon became clear that we needed that kind of area where we could go and test these things and make sure we were doing the right thing and achieving the right objectives. And also I think part of the strategy is to devolve the responsibility for producing these and the ownership out to the business. So having the ability for them to go and test in an area and develop in an area that's obviously going to have no impact on our live environment makes a lot of sense, and also it means we have that kind of gatekeeper role where we can assess things and people can go and learn, but without any risk of actually doing any damage to our live environment. So yeah, made complete sense.
Brilliant. And could you explain a little bit more detail about maybe one of those specific processes and how you've used FlowForma to automate it? So maybe a high value or industry specific type process that you have seen that would actually have been kind of a huge turnaround in terms of automating it.
Yeah, well, excuse me. I mean, probably one that's a kind of medium complex one. Doesn't sound particularly difficult, but it does carry quite good value. Is site visits. So we've got effectively five sections on the job on 31 kilometres of road, and we have a number of people that wish to come and visit, whether that's from parent organisations or VIPs. And one of the things that the team was struggling with, they were having people arrive on site that have booked visits through sending an email to someone. And obviously, a site visit, you've got briefings that need to be given. We need to make sure people have got PPE. We need to understand what work's going on that particular site at any given time. And also, we need to balance them out across the section. So loading up one section with half a dozen visits obviously has an impact on their day-to-day work, and they're obviously trying to build a road. So we had a conversation with the site visit admin team and then looked at what they were doing. And we've basically now built a process that using the public forms enables people from outside of the organisation to book a site tour. They can also book them internally. And then it gives the ability for the guys to go in using Power BI to look at across the entire scheme, see how many visits are going on any given day, and then ratify all the information that's come in as part of the request, make sure all the resources and people and vans and everything are all lined up so that they can conduct those site visits. So although it sounds maybe trivial, it actually can have quite a big impact on the business, on the day-to-day operations, and also has streamlined that process and made it far more efficient for the guys that are dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely, James. And would you say then that one key outcome of all that would be the centralization of your data?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a bit of a mantra, and one of our kind of business drivers is one source of the truth. So historically, as I said earlier, construction, lots of Excel spreadsheets, lots of paper-based forms. People turning up to meetings with, I've reported it in one manner in my Excel spreadsheet, and someone else's interpretation may be somewhat different. So we were really keen to find a solution whereby we could actually have consistency of data and have validation around data so that we can collect that data, centralize it, and then report across multiple systems. So it was absolutely fundamental to achieving what we wanted to achieve.
Fantastic. And as from your background there to the process, you can see you've come a long way in terms of automating all 20 to 24 processes. But do you have bigger plans for process automation in the A14 joint venture?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we've got several hundred processes that we'd look to automate. One of the things we're doing now that I think we're more comfortable with FlowForma, rather than kind of just dealing with the day-to-day requests, we're actually doing some analysis around the processes that exist at the moment and what can we do to, which are the high value ones, the big hitters, that we can actually introduce some good value into the business by doing this. One of the early ones we've got was the permit to dig, which obviously for the guys to go out and do any work on site, they need to select a 3-metre space of land they're going to work on. One of the next things we're going to look at now that we've got that as a semi-automated process is to tie that into our GIS platform so that they can actually go and draw the map of where they're going to dig and remove even more paper. So yeah, I mean, it will continue absolutely throughout the life of the project.
And that actually leads me nicely onto the next question. How has using FlowForma BPM benefit the A14?
Yeah, I mean, without trying to repeat myself too much, I think it's enabling us to achieve the mantra of one source of the truth. So getting that consistent view of data, being able to pull that data into a central data warehouse, and we're very, very heavily into Power BI. So again, the use of FlowForma means that we have more consistency in that data. We were scanning several thousand paper-based records a week, and our aim is to obviously reduce that down. That data comes in automatically, feeds up our doc control, and then means we can spend more time focusing on, rather than just housekeeping, actually understanding where we are on the job and achieving the goals and the KPIs that define the job.
And in terms of governance and compliance, that is obviously something you have to report on quite regularly. Is that something you mentioned around the fact that you can pull that data much more easier? In terms of audits, how often or how easy is it for you to actually pull down that information gathered in your FlowForma processes and feed it to the right people that need to review these audits?
Yeah, as I said, we're very heavily into Power BI. So the beauty of the FlowForma system is that that data is pretty much immediately available to us in our Power BI reports. An example of that is obviously as a kind of an industry, we're measured around things like health and safety and accidents and incidents. So that data can be displayed straight away within our Power BI system. Anything around inspections, it's all just available to us without having to wait for someone to either transcribe it from a paper-based form or for it to be scanned and scraped into a system.
Absolutely. So the efficiencies have just increased for you, which is really great to hear. And you mentioned on the permit to dig process, people out in the field. So you're using our mobile app, and how has that benefited the processes and the information gathering for yourselves?
Yeah, it makes a big difference. As you can imagine, it's a large stretch of road. In some cases, it's completely new road, so the guys are working in fields. There's very little in terms of infrastructure around there. So for them to be able to use a mobile device makes a great deal of difference, because otherwise they'd be filling in a paper-based form. They'd have to come back in to either transcribe that information or hand it over to someone else for it to be dealt with. So being able to use something out in the field makes a world of difference, makes life a lot easier. And we do a lot of inspections, so even down to an example of something which is fairly trivial but makes quite a difference is something like plant standing. So we've got an awful lot of plant on the job. A lot of that's hired in. So one of the efficiencies we can gain is if someone sees a bit of plant, they take a picture of it, upload it using a form on FlowForma, which then goes to the plant manager, and we can investigate within minutes as to why a piece of kit is not being used. Has it been there for a long period of time? So the mobile device makes quite a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see it's a key part to the needs that you had for a successful solution. I imagine along the stretch of road, I know it's several kilometres long, I imagine there wouldn't be Wi-Fi access along all this route. Is offline capability a key piece for you as well around these processes?
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like I said, we're in fields basically in some places, areas not near any kind of level of population. So realistically, we're not in a position to be able to pump Wi-Fi all around the job. So the ability for the guys to go out on site and be able to complete a process while they're out in the field without any reliance on the connectivity makes a lot of difference. We did some surveys beforehand, like I said, 30 odd kilometres of road. We looked at it from a 3G, 4G point of view. In most cases, it seems fine, but you can't guarantee it, and it can be impacted by a number of factors. So just knowing that they can still go and complete that information, regardless of what's going on around them, makes a world of difference.
Brilliant. No, that's great, James. For the next question we have there would be, could you walk us through a day in a life of how FlowForma BPM is being used and the efficiencies you've achieved? I know you mentioned a couple there, but maybe if you could just take the top couple that would come to mind around FlowForma and what you've been able to achieve with it.
A good example of that would be the resourcing flow that we've developed. You're looking at people that maybe need to bring in a ganger or a carpenter or someone to go out on the scheme and do some work. That would either be done previously by someone completing a paper-based form and having to achieve sign-off by finding someone leaving it on a desk, or over the phone. One of the big differences that we've made by using FlowForma is we now have visibility of that process end to end. So if someone wants to order a carpenter or get a carpenter on site, the ability for them to just fill in a form, which then goes off immediately for authorization to a works manager. That works manager can approve it within minutes, and then we can see how long that process takes from end to end for it to be resourced. We don't have the thing where someone completes that form and then leaves it on someone's desk to be signed off, not realising that guy's on holiday for a period of time, so the form doesn't get signed off and things get delayed. So it's improved that whole flow, that whole process from the way that they go and recruit staff, and gives us a measure of how effective we are and where the delays are. So being able to identify, are we struggling to resource the people? Are we struggling because it's not getting approved quick enough? Are they raising them at the right time? But it gives us that visibility that we wouldn't ordinarily have with a paper-based process. For
sure. And James, I imagine as it's a joint venture between three different huge players in the construction industry, there's a lot of uncertainty of what system to use. Like they all have their own systems bringing to the field, so to speak. So has one tool like FlowForma helped to standardize and collaborate amongst all parties on a joint venture?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of it is it enables us to, because we have confidence in the data we're collecting and capturing, we can now offer that data out via our Power BI reporting without any problem. It just makes life a lot easier in terms of handing over that data to the guys as and when we need to.
Definitely. And as I was saying earlier, the different parties would have different preferred vendors. But what was it that made you choose FlowForma BPM then? And did you have any main vendors you looked at, and why were we differentiated against them?
Yeah, as I said, sadly for reasons of day-to-day work, it took us quite a long time to find the ultimate solution we were going to use. But we did look at several other market leaders. We looked at Nintex and K2. From our point of view of what we were looking to do, they were kind of cost prohibitive, and plus we kind of felt as a team that we weren't really going down that no-code route. We were still going to need quite a lot of influence and support from IT as a team, which we were a small team, so we didn't want to pursue that. We looked at Power Apps, which, again, it didn't really fit the bill. Yes, there were certain features that were quite good, but once we dived down to it a bit more to achieve what we wanted to achieve, it became fairly evident we were going to need to have skills around accessing APIs and probably doing a bit of Java and so forth, which, again, just didn't really fit the bill. We did look at a couple of other solutions that were purported to be no-code, but they seemed to be very much in their infancy and didn't have some of the features and requirements that we needed. I think we had some in the region of about 60 kind of requirement statements that we were looking to satisfy as part of that selection process.
And of course, sorry, James, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's ultimately why we ended up with FlowForma as a product.
Absolutely. And from what I understand, you had Microsoft Office 365 already. So I presume that would have played a big role in what you chose, and not only just the no-code, but obviously the platform that it would sit on.
Yeah, completely. I mean, our environment is 100% cloud-based. So the mantra from day one was we want no physical tin on site. So yes, we went with an Office 365 tenancy. All of my user base are kind of enabled on that Office 365. And we were keen to maintain that kind of single sign-on and that familiarity with the environment as well, which obviously FlowForma brings.
That's fantastic, James. Look, thanks a million for answering these questions with us today. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to hand over to Paul Stone now for our demonstration of FlowForma.
Hi, Sarah. Well, thank you, James. That was a great coverage of your implementation of FlowForma. So I'd like to, before the demonstration, just kick off with a few short presentation slides. And I would now like to talk about FlowForma and how it's different to what's in the marketplace at the moment. Primarily, it's built as a solution that has three different components inside it. One is for workflow. Workflow is the execution of a task by resources to achieve business goals. And the second point is forms. Forms is all about the collection of data as those tasks are achieved. And then document generation. So the ability to generate communications from that workflow that's relevant to the participants. Now what we've done with FlowForma is we've merged all those three things into one single product. And what this has allowed us to do is focus on ease of use. So that FlowForma has been designed as a product that's easy to consume by end users. They get it quickly. They can start using it quickly. And the other thing is it's also easy to configure. And so business users themselves can go in and configure out the solution. And the solution is a complete solution. So it's workflow, forms, and document generation all built into one. It also runs on top of a system called SharePoint, and it's using SharePoint as a database to store all that information. All of this is achieved using no code. So you don't need to be a technical resource to actually utilize the system. And at the end result, electronic system for capturing all this information results in better decisions being made at the end, because all that data that you're capturing is available for reporting, and you can make better decisions based on the quality, high quality of the data that you're capturing. Now, the system operates in Office 365 and Azure on top of SharePoint. So just to say that SharePoint is a prerequisite for the system, but it runs on any version of SharePoint. So once you have SharePoint installed, you're absolutely fine. So just to talk about some of the aspects of FlowForma that people particularly like and how it's used in various client environments. And the system is designed to work on a desktop, so you can access it via your browser, whatever your browser might be. But we also have mobile applications that you can download from Apple and Android stores, and they allow you to complete your forms and carry on in your workflow while you're going out and about using your mobile phone or your tablet. It fits very well into environments that enforce self-regulation or indeed have external regulators, and because the system allows you to audit all the process activity in your organization. At the moment, that process activity is recorded in email chains and detailed in spreadsheets and so on. It's very difficult to actually record and report on that, especially if you have external regulators who want to come in and audit your system. FlowForma provides that central repository of information that allows you to perform an audit. The next big selling point of our solution, quite a unique selling point, is it's truly self-build. It's really a no-code solution, and over 92% of our clients utilize no-code in building out their complete solutions with FlowForma. So we really have a self-build solution, and our professional services exist to help you build your solutions yourself. Okay, so just to give you an idea of some of our client base, this slide here just gives you some of our clients, and the point of it is to show you that really our solution fits many, many different environments. It's not designed to be specific to any one industry sector, and this is a wide range of industry sectors just shown in this slide alone. Just out of interest, we have over 100 clients. This is just a very small sample, but again, as I said, to illustrate our wide applicability to different industry sectors. Okay, so what I'd like to do is jump into an actual demonstration of the product. It's nothing like seeing the product itself in action. And in this case, what I'm going to do is open up with a standard demo area that I use and just show you an onboarding process as an example of a process in FlowForma, just so you can see what it looks like. So here we have a page that's used as a dashboard for FlowForma, and we can see various tiles on this page, and we click on the tile to kick off a new process. So here I'm going to kick off an employee onboarding process. So when I kick off the process, a thing called a form opens up, and this form is unlike many forms that you've seen in the past. So sure, it looks like a simple electronic form to begin with, but it includes workflow as well. So what we're seeing here is at the top of the form, we're seeing a simple visualization of the workflow, so that a business end user can quickly see where they are in the workflow right now. We see a series of steps in the process, and I can see very quickly that I'm on a new hard detail step, and all of these steps are assigned to resources. So only the assigned resource will go in and complete the work. So HR are assigned to record new hard details, the employee manager will then be assigned to do the review, and then HR will do sign-off documents and so on. Now this is a simple visual representation, and you might be wondering, well, hang on a second, is it possible to have a different set of tasks for these tasks to be dynamic? And the answer is absolutely. This is a simple visual representation, but you can include and exclude steps in the process as the process moves along. In other words, you can branch the process. You can also have parallel steps. So these three steps here, for example, are actually executed in parallel by different people in the organization. So we support a full range of workflow functions in the system that will allow you to execute complex workflows with branching and parallel tasks, etc. Now, the area below the step bar here contains the data that has to be captured on this first step. In order for me to complete new hard details, I need to enter in some information. And some of these fields, as you see, are mandatory. And we support a wide range of different data types. We can also include things like health text and so on. And we can include text and graphics that can be shown inside a form and to guide the user as to what they should do next. So as you move along, you can include new information on the screen, or you can remove information on the screen. As you're typing in base details, all this information is being validated so that you ensure that the information is accurate. So what I want to do is I'm just showing you here the different types of information that can be captured. But I'm just going to enter in the manager details here. I'm going to put in a department name. And what happens here is the system identifies that I've entered the department name and it asks me who's the manager. Now, just to say that this information could be pre-populated. So as I'm typing it in, I could be looking up a list. It could be looking up my user profile, for example, and it could be pre-populating the data here in the form. So once all that data is complete, I've entered the manager information and it's all valid. I can press submit. And what this does is move the workflow on to the next task. You can imagine that there's a series of people in the organization, each doing their part of the workflow and to achieve the business goal at the end of the day. Now, in this second step, it's assigned to the employee manager review. For the purposes of demonstration, I've made myself the owner of all of these steps. And I can choose to accept or reject this. I can see the details by clicking on the previous step here and see new hire. I'm going to press accept, and I want the person to have access to some applications. So here, let's type in this random information. And I'm now happy to press submit to move it on. I just say at this point that I could delegate this step to somebody else. I could also pass back the workflow to a previous step to correct information that was applied as well. So we handle looping, we handle task delegation, and all this is recorded in an audit log so that you can see a trace of the process and how it was completed, when it was completed, who did the work in an audit log. Now I'll move on and just to say here that we also support a thing called an e-signature. This is where the information is being, the system is revalidating the fact that I am who I say I am. So here it's saying, it's picking up that I'm logged in as Paul Stone, and it's saying that it wants to revalidate my credentials. And what it is doing is ensuring that the person who pressed that submit button and completed the task is actually the person that they say they are. And this again is recorded in the audit log. We now move on to multiple steps that are executed in parallel, and these steps are carried out by different people in the organization. Now, as I said, I've assigned myself to do each job, but normally we'd have HR uploading some signed-off contracts received from the employee, IT preparing access to these systems that have been requested, and then we'll have security giving the person a door pass, that kind of thing. At the end of the day, I just had to fill in one mandatory field here, and at the very end of the day, it moves on to a step that comes back to HR to prepare a welcome pack for the employee. And this welcome pack, incidentally, is automatically generated. So it automatically generates a letter here, a PDF. And here we have the PDF, which incorporates information captured in the form, and it's all ready to be emailed out to the employee. Okay, so that gives you a very quick view of what the system looks like from an end-user point of view. So they're working with forms, completing tasks that are assigned to them, and the system also gives you lists of processes that you've initiated, and you also have processes that are awaiting my input. In other words, processes that are currently have a task that's assigned to me. And you can use these lists to manage your work queues, access the various forms that you're working on, and push your work through the system. Now, in terms of configuration, that's what the end user sees, where the end user is looking at creating new processes and looking at existing processes. And so they're looking at a kind of a dashboard view. Just out of information, we just recently launched some facilities that allow you to have a more complex dashboard that's very easily configured. So here's a dashboard here that's showing me support. It's actually a QA support site that's showing me some support tickets at different stages and different types and so on. And I can use this to drill down into my workload and find out what I need to work on right now. Also, I can use things like performance reporting to identify bottlenecks in business processes. So here's that onboarding workflow we were just looking at, and I can see that I have a problem with these tasks. Now, the real problem here is that this is a demo site, and you know what? I never actually complete my onboarding workflows. So that's why so many of these guys are running late. But using this kind of reporting, you can quickly identify and drill into the detail of those bottlenecks, of why they're occurring. And so you can start to find out, is it a resource issue, or is it a problem with the workflow, whether external actors involved you didn't know about. So all this, the ability to capture all the information in the workflow, in the SharePoint site, and then perform analysis on that data allows you to do this kind of efficiency reporting. So you can start to improve the efficiency of the processes that you have in your workplace. Now, very quickly, I'm going to show you how those workflows are configured. And we said that we built our system specifically for a business developer, a business person to actually configure out the workflows. And to do that, we built a tool called the Flow Designer. This is a tool for actually generating those workflows, creating templates for your workflows and your forms. What we can see here is a series of steps in a workflow. And inside each of these steps, there are details. We call them questions. And these are the questions that a person is going to answer when they have to complete the new hire details, employee manager review, and IT preparation, that kind of thing. Now, the first thing you might say is, hey, it's a workflow system. Where's my flow chart? Because so many workflow systems utilize flow charts as their user interface. In our case, we want to build out a whole solution that's going to capture data, generate documents, do a wide range of things. And all of that information can't be easily captured on a flow chart. But that's not to deny that flowcharts are a great tool and they're easy to consume. People really understand flowcharts. So it's nice to have an ability to sketch out a workflow on a flowchart. And we do provide a flowchart editor here that lets you work through a flowchart style interface. And you can edit this, let's say in a workshop scenario, create a basic workflow, and then add in the detail in the main tool here in the Flow Designer if you want to. Now what I'm going to do is go and add in a new step into this process just to show you how easy it is. So if I go over here and click on plus step, what I can do is type in the name of the new step. We'll just call this a new step, and then press save. And it adds a step in here at the bottom of the workflow. I can then drag that up to the appropriate execution point of the workflow. So I want this to be the second task in the workflow. And in the new step, I can add in a question. Now, this question is a piece of data. So I'm going to type in, let's call this the name. Keep it nice and simple. And the name is going to be a single line of text. That's just a short piece of text. And we support a wide range of different types of data here. And let me just pick one other one as an example. So I'm going to pick choice. As soon as I select it, it automatically changes the form. So now I can enter in some choice values into the form here. And that happens for every single type of data. So if I want to pick up a lookup question that looks up a table, and I can just pick the table that I want to look up, and then pick the field in the table that I want to look up. The great advantage of doing this is that it's all point and click. There's no code required in doing this. I can either apply filters to that table if I want to only show selected records in the list. And all of this is done via simple configuration. Here I can enter in some type text. Here I can make the field mandatory, and so on. And so it's really very straightforward to actually utilize this and to create very quickly a series of steps in a workflow and data items and so on. What makes the system really powerful is the ability to use things called business rules. Now, business rules are conditional actions. What that means is that when I enter in some data, I might want to do something with that and take some action. For example, I might want to assign one of the steps in the workflow to a resource, dynamically assigning them as I move through the workflow. Or I might want to integrate and pull in some information from using a business integration rule from SharePoint, for example. Or I might want to send out an email, or I might want to generate a document. So all of our business rules allow you to make the whole workflow interactive, so that conditional actions occur at certain points in the workflow. Let's very quickly show you an example of that, and then I will move on to the next thing. So let's say I want to make a step disappear from the certain circumstances. Let's say, for example, if the employee name is equal to Paul, then I want to remove the employee manager review, because the employee manager review is not required. It's a little bit nonsensical, but let's go with that anyway. So hey, let's say the first name equals Paul, and then I want to make the employee manager review simply disappear and not be required anymore. And that's what all I would need to do to create that business rule. It's all done through a simple point-and-click form-based interface, and no code is required at all in doing any of this. Time is ticking on, so I'd just like to move on to a couple of more important things. One is the mobile interface. So I can pop up, this is a mobile emulator that shows you an example of a mobile form that can be used on any mobile device. And what a mobile form, the mobile form is available instantly. So once you create your onboarding process in the Flow Designer, you can immediately go into the mobile device and access that process on a mobile device. And on mobile devices, you can also do things like getting the GPS location. And you can also upload things like taking a picture with the mobile device and so on. And you can even apply a wet signature, so you can use your finger to draw on the screen, that kind of thing. So you provide some specific features for mobile. Also, in addition to that, we generate documents. So we have an ability to generate documents. And you've seen that earlier on with the new employee welcome letter. Now, we actually have built a plugin for Microsoft Word that lets you merge in data from your workflow into the Word document and save that as a template. So if I wanted to include the first name from the first step there, I just click on that, include it in the template here, and when I generate the document in the workflow, it automatically includes the data from that we captured in the form. And then this generated document is saved on SharePoint. Now, just some general points, just finishing on some general points. The system utilizes SharePoint. It saves all the documents that it generates and all the data that it collects inside SharePoint. We use our own proprietary format for our data, and that data is stored in an encrypted format inside SharePoint. It's quite difficult to get at. Well, I say extremely difficult to get at unless you have the correct access rights. So the system is very secure. It ensures that only the right people can carry out the tasks. The data that's captured is held in an encrypted format inside SharePoint, and basically you have to have administration access to get at that information. However, we do allow you to consume that information using different reporting tools. So, for example, Microsoft Power BI can be used to pull the information out of the form, that kind of thing. And so there's lots of options to pull that information out. In terms of integration, we integrate with SharePoint natively, and we can also integrate with things like Microsoft SQL Server, and this is all done using no-code business rules. The other thing to say is that should there be any, should you ever find a limitation of FlowForma, it's easy to create your own business rules in your own question types. So we actually have an ability to extend the system, and we allow you to do it. We provide you with full online help, so the system has an online help facility with instructional videos. We also allow you to enhance the system yourselves by coding in some enhancements if you want to, and we'll help you with that. We provide you with instructions. We're very open about it if you like. The whole idea with FlowForma is for you to be able to build a system yourself without being dependent on IT or indeed being dependent on FlowForma to provide services to you. You can just go do it yourself. And we actually have a FlowForma online academy now where you can sign up to the online academy and go on instructional courses where you'll be able to really be educated to basically serve yourself. That's the key thing here. So IT is no longer the bottleneck in delivering increasing business efficiency. Okay, at that point, I think maybe we might jump to Q&A to see if anybody has any questions.
Brilliant, perfect, Paul. Thank you so much for that demo, and thank you also to obviously James and Sarah as well from the earlier presentation. So you guys have been asking your questions throughout this presentation, so we're going to ask some of these out to the panelists now. If you do have any more, feel free to send them through. We'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. So I'm going to start with the first one. I'm just going to push this out to the slide area for you, but first question coming in. Is it really no code? That's the first question coming across.
Yeah, if I could just jump in there. It's basically we've designed a completely no code interface so that you can configure the system yourself using basically by filling in forms, like filling in a form to create a step, filling in a form to create a question, filling in a form to create a business rule. And we find that people respond very well to that. And really, over 92% of our customers actually use FlowForma entirely without any code whatsoever. Where you might need code is simply for integration. So if you want to integrate to your bespoke back-end system, let's say you have a bespoke ERP system or inventory system or something like that, that might involve a little bit of code, but that's actually supported through our open web API. So it's actually a very straightforward thing to do, even if it is required. I hope that answers the question sufficiently.
Perfect. Brilliant, Paul. Thank you very much for that. Now, the next question coming in looks like it is for James here. So this question coming through for you, James. How long have you been using the FlowForma product, and when did you start using it?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Oliver. We purchased it towards the back end of last year. I think just because of resources on our side, it was probably just after Christmas that we started using it in anger, with our first ones going live in early January.
Okay, cool. Perfect. And another question here for you, James, again. So this one coming through. Are processes using FlowForma integrated with project management solutions?
Natively, no, not at the moment. I would imagine as we continue, we may well start to reuse Primavera P6 for our planning management tool. We pull out that data already to use it, and probably it will be analysed in Power BI against some of the responses from FlowForma. It's something we're certainly looking at. We're about to enter into that process of building the API out so that we can work with our GIS platform, and I'm sure we'll end up tying it into our P6 program at some stage.
Perfect. Brilliant. So another question coming in here, I think obviously a more sort of general question coming through, but how long does it take to go live with a process? Paul, perhaps you start with this one.
Yeah, well, it depends, I guess, on the process, but most of our everyday processes are basic processes. It's a 5 to 10 day time frame in terms of going live. It sounds extraordinary, but really you can throw together processes in FlowForma in a very short period. And we promote the whole idea of prototyping. So literally you sketch out the process after your workshop. Let's say you have a workshop on Monday, sketch it out on Tuesday, play it back to your end users on Wednesday, and then refine it. And typically, by the end of the week or the second week, you have a process that's ready to go. And really promoting the process into a production environment is very straightforward. We support the whole idea of kind of exporting it from UAT and importing it into production, and we make it very simple. And some new features of the product coming this year will make it even easier for IT to actually carry out this kind of work. And so the business user builds the process, IT stick it into production, and they make sure the production environment is performing all the time. So yeah, so it's about a 1 to 2 week delivery cycle on most processes. Longer processes, the longest I've ever come across is 30 days. So so there you go. That was a particularly complex one.
Perfect, brilliant. Thanks for that, Paul. And another one coming through for you there, Paul. Do I need internet to use FlowForma?
Oh yeah, that's a really important one. Yeah, it's web-based. So basically, if you're working from your desktop, yes, you would access FlowForma via your browser, internet browser. It's a little different though if you work on a mobile device. So our mobile apps are able to cache information in the mobile device. So you can actually go offline entirely and fill in a form on the mobile device, and then later when you have connectivity, you can synchronize up to the SharePoint device, the SharePoint server where the data is all stored. So so the answer is yes, on the desktop, online is required, but if you're on a mobile device, we have this mobile device caching, so that allows you to work offline. I think this is something particularly relevant to people like James, where he has a workforce who travels over the country and goes to remote sites where there's no internet connectivity. So this offline ability really comes in very useful.
Perfect, brilliant. Thank you for that, Paul. Another question coming in. Have you ever built an API into an ERP so that the data collected is automatically entered into the ERP?
yeah, if I could jump in there again, you can basically, if the ERP system supports web APIs, then you can pass the data from the form into the ERP system. Okay. Now, the first time you do this, you have to write a small amount of code. Okay. There's a small amount of code where you create a business rule that's incorporated into the FlowForma system that allows you to transfer information easily between the form and the ERP system. Once you create that business rule, it's a no-code business rule. So basically, the business rule then can be used by business users again and again in different workflows. But the first time you create that business rule, you write a small amount of code. And we will provide you with all the information that you need to do that yourself, or indeed you can have us do it for you. But it's quite a small job, and the reason is that we actually built a web API. We built a system specifically to be able to do this. So we see custom ERP systems really are not a problem to us, or for that matter, kind of inventory management, anything like that. We can just work with. Oh, just to work with one other.
Oh, yep.
Just to say one other thing, if your other solutions that we've implemented for clients, they've used things like SQL Server, where they're using SQL Server as a staging area to pass data between FlowForma and the ERP system, and that doesn't require any custom coding. So just to say that as well. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
No problem, no problem. Thanks very much for the answer, Paul. And just having a look at the time, looks like we've got time for just one more question coming through. So final question coming in. What technology do I need to run FlowForma?
Maybe if I could jump in on that last one there, just to say that the only prerequisite for FlowForma is that you have Microsoft SharePoint in some form. So basically, whether it's SharePoint Online in Office 365, or whether it's SharePoint 2013 or 2016 on-premise, that's sufficient. As long as we can use SharePoint as our database, that's the only thing that FlowForma needs. Beyond that, you're talking about browsers, and any modern browser is compatible with FlowForma, or indeed mobile devices, and we support iOS and Android mobile devices.
Fantastic, brilliant, Paul. So that pretty much brings us to a close for today. For now, I'd like to thank all of our speakers that provided their time and insight today, but as well also all of the audience members who took part in the session by asking those questions. To finish up, Paul, would you like to give any closing statements at all?
No, just to say that FlowForma is an easy-to-use tool. It's very easy to adopt and very easy to get going on and try out. And in fact, we support that with offering a 30-day trial, and also we can provide a demonstration for you. We can arrange a one-to-one demo to go through your specific business scenarios. So it's all about helping you to discover how easy it is to use FlowForma, and then helping you to build out your own systems yourself and take control of your own environment. So yeah, so that's really it. It's all about kind of enabling your business to achieve its goals faster and quicker and easier.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. Brilliant. Well, thank you again for joining us today, Sarah, James, and Paul. It was a pleasure having you with us here at OPEX Live. And thank you all for joining us in the audience as well and taking part. Don't forget to join us for our second session, which is the final one of this OPEX Live event. That begins in about 30 minutes time, 10:30 US Eastern time. All the sessions from this event are being recorded, and you will receive links to those sent out to you within 24 hours of the session finishing. So do be on the lookout for those. But thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing you again at the next session shortly. But for now, goodbye.